Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar again, exploring tech career paths with Made Tech. I'm going to be the moderator for today. My name is Joanna, and I'm the content specialist at HackerJob. Today, we're going to hear from some amazing women at Made Tech. They're all in different roles and stages in their careers, and they'll be sharing what they've learned so far working in tech, the types of projects you can expect to work at Made Tech, and career growth tips, and a lot more. Before we get started, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping. Please don't use the hands up feature. Use the Q&A function. They'll be able to find at the bottom or top of your screen. If your question is specific to an individual, please mention them in the question and I'll direct the questions to the speakers. And yeah, you can ask questions throughout the event, but we'll have a slot at the end, 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to cover all unanswered questions. So the first speaker will be Tess, followed by Sarah, and then Sonia, and then we'll have Q&A. So some introductions to the guests. Today we're joined by Tess Barnes, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, lead engineer at Made Tech, and we've got all the speaker superpowers. So Tess' superpower is curious questions. Joining her is Sarah Sykes. She's the interaction and service designer at Made Tech with the ability to adapt to change. That's a superpower. And Sonia, she won't be able to join us live, but she has recorded a little video, which we'll play at the end. She's the senior delivery manager at Made Tech, and her superpower is fostering collaboration. And I will now hand over to Tess for her presentation.
Thank you very much. Hello, welcome, and thank you for spending some of your lunchtime with us. It's always appreciated. Breaks are important, but you get to spend them with us, which is awesome. So I'm Tess Barnes. I am a successful engineer. It's a great start, isn't it? So I'm here to talk about the gift that keeps giving. So engineering really is a never-ending story. And how do you live with that? How do you live with something that's never complete? So I've spent a number of years in business before I started in tech. That's okay. I've got a much wider view of the tech world and what we do in it. I'm self-taught. That's absolutely fine. I'm motivated to learn and I learn every day. You don't have to have a formal tech education to start. It's taken me quite a while to learn where I fit in. That's okay. I want to know everything. So I like to complete things. So it takes me a little while to get around where I want to dive in. And that's okay. Failure is where I learn things. So trying something, finding it didn't fit for me was a brilliant way to learn. And it's uncomfortable, but learning is uncomfortable. That's part of its joy. If you're not uncomfortable, you might not be learning anything. And I've stayed 20 years and more in this industry, and I program in more than 5 languages. I've touched a lot of things because I'm never done. So let's dig into that. Let's move on a little bit and say, you want to be an engineer, okay? So you're starting and you're thinking, maybe engineering coding is my thing. There are some things that you want to face up to when taking that on. You will never know everything. I have a completion compulsion, but I still have to learn to live with not being able to know everything. Tech is absolutely huge. The next thing that you might want to think about is owning your own progress. You might be at the start of your career, you might be a few years in, you might be where I am and looking for a change. You will need to own that. If you rely on your employer to give you all of the direction, that's not their job. That's not why they're in business. You can choose a company that gives you plenty of support with that. In Maytech, we're really lucky. We get learning time. We get to talk career plans with our line managers. But ultimately, it's my responsibility to decide where I want to go next, what I'm looking for in the next challenge, in the next learning opportunity. If I don't drive that, I'll get left behind. So owning that progress for yourself, getting into the habit, that is a really good thing to get up to speed with. The other thing is engineering is a team sport. We are introverts in the main, or some kind of mix. We really like concentrating and getting deep into the code. We like playing with tech, and that's great. That's what we're good at. And there is a school of thought that Cal Newport has particularly advocated called deep work. So having these slots of time when you're very, very focused to concentrate to what you're doing. That's important in engineering, but you can't do that by itself. Your role is an engineer first, but collaborating and talking to your colleagues in tech, your industry colleagues, mentoring them. It doesn't matter what level you're at, you can still mentor someone else. You can peer mentor or reverse mentor. So working with those kinds of people, working with stakeholders, working with our design colleagues, working with our delivery manager colleagues, you'll hear more about that later. All of these things are required for engineering. And because it's such a huge discipline, you might want to start looking at tech as a wide, broad church. Get to know front end and back end and coding for infrastructure, looking at lots of different areas. Or you might want to find something that you're very, very curious about and you want to go all in on that. That's brilliant, as long as you don't become the Betamax of your engineering team. If you don't know what Betamax is, go look it up. It is WorkSafe, I promise. It's not somewhere where you want to be left behind. But on the other hand, sometimes specializing can help you get a role in a particular industry or a particular company that you're really, really interested in. I chose public sector because of the variety and because of having that impact on citizens' lives. So that brings us on to, you want to be a consultant. Maytech, we're consultants. We are employed. Maytech is the company, but we go and work in other companies. We go and help out in their coding arena. We help out by upskilling and getting people onto better practices, helping them see outside of the box of a company, maybe the only company they've ever worked for. So as a consultant, it's not just being an engineer. So what do you need to think about for that particular role? So the first thing we'll come up against is sometimes the work is boring. Sometimes the code is horrible. Sometimes the greenfield is something no one's ever done before, which is where all of your colleagues in user research and data analysis and delivery management will help you keep the scope in a reasonable state to be able to work with, which is great. But if it was easy, we wouldn't be there as consultants. So consultancy is something that you want to go for when you really want a good challenge. The other lovely thing about working at Maytech and working with other companies is you get to embrace that no one is to blame. We could jump into a company and work with our clients and go, oh, well, they did it terribly until we came in and then we'll make everything perfect. That's not really how it works. So we might go in and we might find that there's a team of people that really know great practices and they really want to get to grips with something, but they've got to clear the way first. We might be there to help with that. So they're not to blame. They aren't in a situation because they caused it. They're in a situation they're trying to fix. So being alongside them is our opportunity to work as a consultant. We're not better. We don't bring our egos with us. The other interesting thing about consultancy is you're going to have to leave at some point. I don't mean leave your consultancy. I'm not thinking about leaving Maintech anytime soon. It's far too much fun. But you'll need to leave the client delivery at some point. So any day could be the day that everyone goes, yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. We don't need you anymore. The best thing to think about is how to make sure that the day we walk away, we have left everything in a handover state. We're always handover ready. So we need to empathize, but we need to understand how to bridge the gap. It's back to being a team player. We're not just writing code. We're thinking about how to make that maintainable. We're thinking about how to help people understand how we've done it, training other people so that they don't need us anymore. That's important. The fourth thing is around being a consultant, you'll always work for at least 2 masters. So you'll always have the client that you will have in focus. You'll be driving things forward for them and helping them achieve what they want to achieve. And I've got Maintech, so I have my colleagues at Maintech to look after. I work with the apprentices. There's a lot of communities of practice and other learning opportunities. We have an engineering book club, things like that. And so making sure that you can balance your time on both sides is really important. So consultancy isn't for everyone, but it can be really, really exciting and can open the door to work on some really impactful projects. So again, what's next? So lead engineer, that's where I am. And it's taken me a little while to get there. I've gone up and down. I've spread myself across all the tech stacks. So we can continue on to the lead engineer slide. We're going backwards. No, we're going forwards. One more. Yes, that's the slide I'm looking for. Excellent. So my day-to-day is not just cranking code. It's not just being a consultant. It's also looking after my colleagues, looking after a team. So I get to make room for others. I get to work with apprentices and mentor other people that are up and coming. I get to work with community practices, and I get to hold the space for other engineers. The last 2 weeks, I worked with some really great mid-engineers who are involved in architecturing a change to a system. And it's brilliant to sit back and watch them work, to come in when they need it. But other than that, to watch them go, this is fantastic. And I get to look at a bigger picture. I look to further across the horizon. I like systems thinking, so thinking about things in a bigger picture is brilliant. But I'm actually still an engineer. I still crank code. One of the mid-engineers I'm working with taught me a bunch about React in the last week. I had no idea. Not much of a front-end engineer, but it was really good to learn something new. So swapping from big picture to little picture to big picture to details, that swapping thing is a really big skill to learn. The other thing I've learned about being a lead engineer is my job title is not a free pass. It isn't a free pass in consultancy in any client, but it's also not a free pass amongst Maintech employees. We respect each other for what we bring, not the job title we hold. So for me, leader is not a title that the world gives to you. It's an offering that you give to the world. And that's a quote I completely stolen from Abby Wambach. She's written a wonderful book about leadership. She's in soccer, Olympian, but what she has to say about leadership and teamwork is really good. So just 2 more slides. No more being boring. So when it comes to finding your own resources for your own journey, there's a bunch of things that you can look for. When learning any kind of tech, whatever tech it is, there's going to be documentation. online somewhere, whether it's AWS or any of the other cloud providers, anything to do with Red Hat, Terraform, anything infrastructure as code. There's great documentation online. Bildung is your friend if you're doing Java or Kotlin. There's Pluralsight, Udemy, Cloud9, loads of free courses. But under training materials, my biggest recommendation is O'Reilly. They have a learning platform. They publish amazing books. They're not necessarily cheap, but what they write about stands the test of time. They really, really are a good publisher. Might be worth having a look at. My favorite industry voices I've listed there, they're not the usual ones. They're not Jez Humble or Ron Jeffries or Martin Fowler, the people you hear about as being the Gang of Four and the big wigs. These are folks that really, really, really care about tech and people in tech, up and coming. Jessica Kerr is an American lead engineer who really still remembers what it's like to be a junior engineer and has an amazing blog. Nicole Forsgren is the powerhouse behind the data analysis of Accelerate. So how things get out in the wild really quickly. She's amazing. Claire Sudbury, I had the privilege of working with at MadeTech before she moved on to Greater Things. And she is a fantastic technical coach and mentor. I would recommend you look her up. And the other joy of working for MadeTech is that we have a lot of allies. We're very inclusive. I should have said when I introduced myself that my pronouns are she, her. Because I don't see people in front of me, I forgot. So that's my reminder to myself. But we support equity. We're sponsors of Coding Black Females and Queer Tech Bristol, and any organisations that you can find that resonate with you to work with, to support you on your coding career and mentoring others and being mentored. Go for any of those opportunities. These are the two that spring to mind for me. And I will close with a quote, because tech is daunting. I cannot deny that. It's a huge arena. It feels really overpopulated and very competitive, but actually you don't need very much to make a go of this. You don't need special permission to turn up to the table. You need ideas. You need to have some thought about a problem that you've seen and how you might solve it. If you have curious questions and the will to ask them, that will take you a long, long way. So that's it from me. And I will hand back over to directly to Sarah, maybe. Please meet my colleague.
Hi, thanks, Tess. So yeah, hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm Sarah, my pronouns are she, her. I'm working as an interaction and service designer, and just as a little bit of a background, I did a career change about 2 years ago. I worked in a different career as a fashion designer for about 11 years before changing into this. And I'm going to start off with, just in case anyone wasn't aware of what actually interaction and service design is and what those roles involve. So these are some of the roles that you might have heard of. These were the sort of roles I was more familiar with before I started at MadeTech. You have UX design, user experience, you've got UI, user interface, and maybe also product design, which sort of encompasses a bit of all of those in terms of what the user is doing, but also visually what the service and product looks like. These tend to be roles found more within the private sector, and they usually encompass some form of interaction, service design, and also a bit of user research. Next slide, please. But within the public sector and within government, our roles look a little bit different to sort of the UX roles. They are split more into separate specialisms. You can sort of see from the graphic on here how they sort of might work within a team. There's some overlap between them, but typically each of those brings their own skill set to a multidisciplinary team. And the reason we don't have user experience design roles within gov and public sector is because we believe the user experience is everyone's responsibility. Next slide. So yeah, what actually is interaction design? So this is working out the best way to let users interact with a service, and that's both in terms of overall flow and also a level of individual design elements. So that is thinking about the whole journey from the start to the finish. What are they doing on each page? How does that flow? But also maybe focusing in on some of those particular elements that are maybe a bit more tricky, maybe something like an upload feature that needs a bit more of attention to make sure that what we're creating is usable and also accessible. And then service design. This is a bit more sort of overall thinking in terms of the product and service. So we're designing end to end of the journey, and that will be from when the user need arises right up until it's been met. It's thinking about the front to the back. So that's considering not only our users, but also software and technology and processes at each stage. And it might also include cross-channel touch points. So that could be something like maybe there's a telephone line or even an in-person contact as well as part of that service. And it's just thinking about how all of that comes together to make a service or a product. So skills that I think you might need and that I've found useful coming into this, and I've separated these out into two kind of categories in terms of like just soft skills and more design related skills. So first one on there is listening and having empathy. We do work with users a lot, and obviously we're doing a lot of user researchers. We need to make sure we're designing for all users within our work. Having empathy for those users, being able to understand them, put them first in what we do. That really helps to understand the problem space, their pain points, and ensure that we're building the right things. Being able to have excellent communication, working within multidisciplinary teams. Sometimes teams can be quite large. You are working with a lot of different people, and being able to understand how they work, importance of team dynamics, collaboration and feedback is really key. Also, being able to communicate well with stakeholders is really key to be able to deliver our outcomes. And then people skills. So a little bit of what we do touches on sort of psychology. So having that real interest in people, how we behave, how we interact with digital interfaces, but also their user needs and desires, and how they're evolving over time because they are forever changing. That's really key to have. And then thinking more in terms of like design-based skills. Obviously, a lot of what I do is actually prototyping and wireframe. That makes up a lot of my job. But the other aspect to that is being really great at storytelling, being able to frame your design decisions, your options, maybe what challenges you might have overcome. That's also equally as important. Being able to explain the how and the why and the what, and how that impacts our users and helps them solve some of those problems. And then I've included prototyping in code, but I will caveat this with, before I came into this, I knew absolutely no code whatsoever, and that's okay. Don't let that put you off. You can get started with very little knowledge. Everything that I've learned on the job, and that's come from a variety of self-teaching. I've been practicing with the Gov prototype kit, but also getting to work with developers, having a community space of other designers to communicate with, ask questions. That's been absolutely like fantastic in terms of getting me to where I need to be now. And it's not scary at all. And then finally, I've just sort of touched on potentially having a bit of visual and graphic design sort of experience or knowledge. And again, I don't think you have to be an expert, but having that foundation of layout, page structure, that sort of thing, that's really helpful when you're getting started. So in terms of working as a consultancy within the public sector, we get a variety of clients and work streams. There's so much variation, and for me, I've found little chance of getting bored. No two deliveries are quite the same. Each have their own set of unique challenges, and that brings with a lot of varied learning opportunities. You get exposed to a lot of different things, and that includes user groups, but also technologies. We've got a really great community of user-centered practitioners. As I mentioned, having that there for a source of support, a really friendly, safe space to be able to share knowledge. That's a real benefit of working at MadeTech. The real draw for me for wanting to make a career change, but specifically into like the public sector, was that you actually get to build things that help improve user lives. So a user of a government service, for example, something like a tax return, users can't shop around to find the best place to do that. There's one place you can go and do that. So being able to work on something like that and make that process, which typically might be a stressful one or a negative one, and make that as positive as possible and as easy as possible, that's really rewarding for me. And then finally, the learning and development opportunities. We know user needs are always changing, but so is technology. And being able to dedicate time and the budget that we have to be able to continue to grow and develop, that helps us not only become better consultants, but enables us to continually improve our products and services for users. Next slide, please. So yeah, how you might be able to make a career change successful. These are definitely the things I found helpful for me. And I think if you are considering making a change, no matter what field you've worked in before, many of the skills you've got will be helpful for that transition into tech. And that's things like you already know how to conduct yourself in a professional setting, you know how to manage your time, and you know when to ask for help. Being able to embrace change, don't be afraid to fail, get comfortable in the uncomfortable. So similar to what Tess was saying, and if you are doing a career change, you've probably come from a place where you know your job very well, you can do it with minimal support, to having to almost start again from scratch. And that will at times feel a little unsettling. Maybe you're a bit unsure, but that's okay. And that's all part of the learning experience. Regularly engaging with those uncomfortable situations, that helps to expand our comfort zones and makes us more adaptable to new experiences. Always ask questions, but also don't forget to ask for feedback too, so you can continually grow. And then setting achievable goals, but small achievable goals. I think starting a new career, you know, it's great to be determined and want to achieve great things, but you've got a lot to learn to master. And I think working more in terms of what do I want to know in the next few weeks, few months, and build on those incrementally. Small things might be attending a conference or sharing a piece of work for feedback. The more you can do with that, the more comfortable you're going to get, and it's going to be that nice gradual growth. Next slide. A few resources and tools. I found these all super useful. I probably use most of these still every single day. So Gov UK have got a whole great resources that are completely free. That's things like the design system, the service manual, and the prototype kit, which I mentioned is sort of a great tool for being able to practice a little bit of designing in code. I also have mentioned probably accessibility. So web content accessibility guidelines, or WCAG as we call it. Accessibility is a huge part of what we do, and it is the law. So this is a great resource to be able to understand that and best practices. Figma, which is the design tool that I use most days to create wireframes. Again, it's free. So if you want to go on and try a few things, you absolutely can. Miro and Mural, these are just great workspaces for collaborative working, a great space to maybe just collate all your ideas, great for analysing research as well. And then I've just pulled out a link here for Ladies at UX. I've been to a few of these events. These are really good. It's a growing collaborative community of both designers and researchers within the industry. They have groups nationwide and host regular meetups and conferences and skill sharing. So those are really great to attend. And then finally, just on the next slide, yeah, I've got a couple of books here as well. I think if you asked anyone at Maytech within the UCP community, the first book they're going to recommend to you is probably Good Services by Lou Downe. A great book, definitely recommend that. There's a trilogy of books called This is Service Design, helpful in terms of being able to explain why we're doing something, what we're doing, and how you might go about doing it. And then Laws of UX, another great one. I touched a little bit on psychology being important and helping us design better products and services. Now, both Lou Downe and This is Service Design, they offer sort of courses and boot camps if you go on and Google those. However, they are a little bit expensive. So if you haven't got a huge budget, a couple of other things I recommend, I've put a link here to UX Equity Learning. And that's all about opening up access to UX learning materials for all. There's a list of free or low cost materials, content for you to have a look at. So that's a really great one. And then finally, I've just included a link for Mega Mentor. Again, completely free. You can go on. There is a whole list of people who've put themselves on there at various stages of their career that you can reach out to if you're interested in getting a mentor. But that's it from me. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. So Sonia, like I said at the beginning of the webinar, was not able to join, but she did record a video, which I will now play. And let me know if you can hear the sound.
Hi everyone,
Yep, that's coming through.
Joanna, I think I can't hear it. You might have to unmute.
Oh, gotcha. I'll start from the beginning. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonia. Apologies I can't make it today, but I've taken the time out to do a recording to ensure that you've also got an opportunity to hear what I wanted to say. So just a bit of an overview of myself. So I'm a senior delivery manager here at Maytech, and I previously worked in Cabinet Office as a delivery manager as well, and I will touch on that as we progress. So I've included these three words here: curiosity, challenge, and collaboration, as a starting point for what I want to talk about today. And the reason I did that, I think the role of a delivery manager is incredibly important to be curious and ask those questions. I also think it's really important to be able to challenge and to be challenged in order to understand the different areas of work that your team are leading on and ensure that you're maximizing delivery. And also the ability to collaborate. I think collaboration is absolutely key as within the role of a delivery manager, and the ability to work with a multidisciplinary team as well as clients and stakeholders is essential. So I wanted to use that as a starting point, and these 3 words I'm sure like I'll touch on and come back to as we progress through the presentation. So how did I get here? Yeah, so looking at this, I never actually initially intended to start off in tech. If anything, to be honest, I always was slightly reluctant and apprehensive to pursue or even consider a career in tech. And I think this came from my lack of exposure beforehand and just simply not knowing what roles and opportunities were available to pursue a career in tech. But just to give a bit of an overview as to like literally how am I here? So I initially studied philosophy and politics, and I did so with the intention of wanting to specialise in policy. And because I wanted to specialise in policy, I wanted to work in the civil service. And therefore, I was really fortunate to join the civil service fast stream. And I'm not sure if the people watching this, if you're aware of what that is, but that's essentially, it's a graduate scheme within the civil service, and there's several different schemes on there. I was actually a generalist on there, which meant that I could specialise in a variety of different areas, one of those areas being policy. And it's a 3-year scheme, and you don't actually get to choose the role or the posting that you want to go to. You can provide suggestions. However, my roles, I ended up being assigned to high-profile digital projects, which was absolutely fine. And my first role was actually within Cabinet Office, working on a project which at the time was time of EU exit transition. So it was very high priority, high profile, subject to a lot of scrutiny and working against very tight deadlines. And from my experience to that project there, that gave me the exposure and the ability to understand the importance of digital and tech projects. I think if it weren't for that initial project, maybe I didn't recognize fully the importance and the value of them. And since then, I've been very fortunate to work on several other digital projects following from that. As I said, like one thing that I would really reiterate is that I did always want to specialize in policy. So moving away from policy, I've been fortunate enough to work in central government where policy has been developed and policy has been shaped, but I've also simultaneously been able to work on the digital side of that, whilst that policy has been developed, and building a service to align and help deliver that policy, which is something very interesting, unique. And I think as we're progressing in the modern day world of evolving technology, it's something we'll definitely see as government continues to evolve as well. So what is delivery management? I feel like I get people asking me this question so many times. What do you actually do? And I've included here, Leo as Gatsby. So to all the delivery managers managing the agility. So a key aspect of delivery management is incorporating, adopting, and using agile and lean practices. And without delving into too much detail what that is, essentially in a nutshell, incorporating agile practices is ensuring or delivering the work, adopting specific practices to ensure that efficiency of output is maximized when a project is being delivered. So as opposed to traditional waterfall project delivery, whereby a delivery date may be set and perhaps what the outcome of that delivery date would be, in agile delivery, you're able to remain agile and be iterative with the work that you're delivering. So for instance, on my team, how we adopt agile is that on a week-by-week basis, we deliver different outputs of maybe a service that we're building or a prototype that we're building. And how that changes is that we take into consideration the user testing that we do, and user research that we do from actual potential users, and take that feedback and incorporate that and iterate the work that we're working on to deliver and acknowledge those areas, which is a really essential point of being a delivery manager. Also communicating between the technical and the non-technical. So I work in a multidisciplinary team. I work with engineers, with content designers, interaction designers, user researchers, the list goes on and on. As a delivery manager, I absolutely do not understand the full extent of all of their roles. And when I say all of their roles, I mean the skills and the day-to-day breakdown of the tasks and areas that they work on. And I really rely on my team to explain that to me and help me develop my understanding of that. Which for me is something that I do quite a lot, and I'll come to that. It goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of being curious and asking those questions. So when I do have an informed technical knowledge of something from my team, I'm then able to take that information and translate it to the non-technical people. So maybe the clients or stakeholders that we're working with who aren't digital experts. And I'm able to take that time and opportunity to explain and outline these things to them. Moving on to commercial and financial management. So commercial and financial management is essential as a delivery manager. Reason being, you have to ensure that your project is on track and that your project is working against the agreed statement of works and budget that you have. And that includes ensuring that you're incorporating and maximizing the resources that you have on the team, as well as any other contracts or commercial arrangements that you may have on a specific project that you're working on. So really ensuring that commercial and financial elements are all on track and aligned to the client standards. Maintaining delivery momentum as well. This is quite a difficult one because essentially every delivery manager is different. And there's no set way of being able to maintain that delivery momentum. I think it's really down to the personality of an individual. But yeah, I think it's something really key. A lot of the time on digital delivery projects, you're working under pressure, you're working under tight deadlines to deliver things. And as I said, incorporating agile practices means that we have less time to deliver an output. So for instance, we may be working in a sprint format of a week or a fortnight where we want to deliver something. So it's really important to be able to keep the team positive and maintain that speed and momentum of delivery. And then that leads to team dynamics and collaboration. And obviously I mentioned collaboration at the start, but it's incredibly important as a delivery manager to be able to work within this multidisciplinary team and ensure that the team are positive and have the confidence to raise any risks, issues, or blockers that they may be experiencing. It's then the role of the delivery manager to take that forward and try and unblock those to help progress delivery in accordance to the plan that we have. So moving on, so what skills are required for that? So I would say communication is absolutely key. And whether this is written communication or verbal communication, I think it's essential to be able to have open communication with the team that you're working with to deliver the project, as well as the client and the stakeholder themselves. So I would say maintaining that open communication is essential to ensure that the work progresses. In doing so, it's also really important to plan. And as I mentioned previously, using agile and lean practices, it's difficult to plan long term. However, it's key to plan in the short-term iterative phases that you're working in. So being able to plan and organize a team is really key, so everyone has a clear understanding of the priorities and outputs at a given time. Problem solving, I feel like this is, a really important skill, regardless of what role you're in, but I think specifically for a delivery manager as well. There's always going to be problems on a project, that's almost guaranteed, but how you solve those problems or how you tackle those problems is what's really important and what's really interesting as a delivery manager. And essentially you get the opportunity to really face those problems head first and try to resolve them. Listening, I think listening is incredibly important. One thing I try to do actively with my team is listen and really ensure that I'm listening and understanding what they're saying. And that could be them maybe providing an update of the work that they're doing, or if they're facing any risks, issues, or blockers, or if they've got any wider concerns on the project. So I think listening is always really essential, and especially as a delivery manager, ensuring that your team are aware that you are there to be able to listen to them as well, I think for them can also be very supportive and motivating. As I mentioned earlier, asking questions. I'm definitely one to constantly ask my team questions and also my client and stakeholders. I definitely feel, as I've said previously, I do not know the full extent of the technical roles that my team work on in a given project. So I am absolutely always asking questions and being curious to help develop my understanding of that. I've also included here the ability to influence. So this is an interesting one, as I think as a delivery manager, there can be instances where you need to explain or convince your client or stakeholder of a certain situation that you're in and provide your best recommendations that you have formed as a team. And that could be maybe the direction for a project going forwards, or explaining to them a risk issue or blocker that we're currently faced with. But the ability to communicate that and influence a client's understanding of a given situation, for an example, is a really valuable skill. I've mentioned this previously, so being able to translate the technical to the non-technical, I think this is really important. So having the opportunity and the ability to take that technical knowledge which is there and be able to explain it in a way where your client, as an example, understands, it's key. And it also helps them and reassures them that the project is progressing how it is supposed to, and outlining the points there. And finally, I've put leadership. And the reason why I've put that is, as a delivery manager, when I'm working with my team, we are absolutely one team, and one environment that I love to create and a culture that I love to create is that one team mentality. Despite that, though, especially on an agile digital delivery project, I think it's essential that the team have direction and understand the priorities and what we're working towards. And I think the role of a delivery manager is so key in driving that forward, to ensure that all the team are on the same track and understand the same priorities that we need to deliver. So yeah, I think leadership is a really key one as well. I've bobbed in here delivery management in the civil service and consultancy. So this is touching on my time being a civil servant in Cabinet Office and the opportunities that I had working on digital projects, as well as my time here in Maytech so far and the opportunities I've also had working in central government. So I feel quite fortunate that I've been able to work on both ends. So being a civil servant internally, as well as working in a consultancy and working within a government department. And like my key takeaways from those are that for me personally, I've got a huge interest and I really do genuinely care about central government digital projects. And the reason being, I've seen or I've had the opportunity to have first-hand exposure to the benefits and the value what these digital projects can, essentially what they can deliver, and how they can support and improve people's ways of working, ways of life, and ultimately deliver value. And that touches on my next point. So having the opportunity to work on valuable and important projects. Being a delivery manager, specifically working in central government, whether that be by the civil service or a consultancy, you do have the opportunity to work on projects which do tend to be in the public eye or subject to scrutiny a lot of the time. And I think that goes back to the point that I was making earlier. It really does just give you the opportunity, or helps make you realise further the value and the importance of the work that you're delivering. Also, opportunities to shadow or work with other delivery people. So I've mentioned before that not every delivery manager is the same, and I will stick by that. I really value spending time with other delivery managers or shadowing other delivery managers to see their approach to work, how they work with their team, or maybe how they run certain meetings or ceremonies. I think it's always really interesting to take ideas from other delivery managers and think about, oh, maybe I could take this forward with my team, or that could be beneficial to incorporate in a project in the future. Challenging moments. There will absolutely be challenging moments, and this could be due to a variety of things, working against deadlines, maybe having a risk or a blocker that comes up and slows things down. There's all sorts, and it goes back to what I was saying previously in terms of having the ability to tackle those problems head on and then progress the delivery of a project. And as I've said as well, every delivery manager is different. So yeah, working in delivery management, it gives you the opportunity to view the different approaches of different delivery managers and also get to understand more or learn more about the projects that they've been working on. And then finally, I've just outlined some recommended resources here for delivery managers. So I've included the service manual, which is used across government, and it outlines here agile delivery. I've also used the government digital and data profession capability framework. Similarly, it's a cross-gov resource, which is used across all departments and helps outline further agile delivery and what's expected in project delivery. And again, just some books here, which I've read myself personally and have really helped aid my understanding of agile delivery, and also some recommendations and skills that I've taken forward. Any questions? Obviously, I'm not here. Please do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me any questions, or to loop back in with Anna here from Maytech for any questions to be passed over to me. Thanks all.
Amazing. I'll stop the presentation there. We'll now be going into the Q&A section, and I'll start with you, Bill, leave the speakers to breathe a bit. What roles are you hiring for, and are they remote, hybrid, or fully in the office?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Bill and I'm part of the talent acquisition team here at Maytech. So at the moment, we're hiring in a few capabilities here at Maytech. So the first one is in data. So at the moment, we have 2 roles in data for a senior data engineer and lead data engineer to join the business, practicing data engineering in Python and Spark environments. Typically, the roles in Maytech are hybrid. We have 4 offices, so we've got London, Manchester, Bristol, and Swansea, if I'm not mistaken. And depending on where you're based geographically, so let's say if you're based in Surrey, just outside of London, then geographically London will be your closest office. I believe it's typically our hybrid business model is pretty much like 2 days a week in the office. Sometimes it can be quite not as busy in the office, so you can use that discretion to kind of like really focus and apply your skills to kind of like do the job remotely a lot of the time. For any situations where you have to be traveling a bit further down for 1 day or 2, so let's say if you live in London and you have an away day, or you have a meeting in the Manchester office or around the area of the client, the good thing about Maytech is we can support on like traveling and even accommodation if you need to stay a day or 2 here and there. So yeah, 2 roles in data, and then we have a big project at the moment for one of our customers in Swansea. So we're hiring. You can see Jet up in there. We're hiring for software engineers to support. I believe it's a cloud migration project, and this has come because of how well Maytech, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maytech team, of how well our delivery of being in a relationship has been to delivering for this customer. They see Maytech as the main consultancy who can really go out there and deliver this migration project. So we're hiring for software engineers, I believe operating at senior and lead. Going back onto the panelists in terms of what they said, we're advocates of learning. So we're really open to that. If someone was to apply and maybe they don't have all of the skills listed on the job description, but they have some really good skills where we can see, this can really have so much value here at Maytech. And I'm a massive believer of, always a student, never a master. So, anyone can come in and you can always teach other people here. So we always say, we welcome applications, even if you don't have all the skills, feel free to apply, be curious, and, we can always try and start conversations that way. So yeah, this is a big project happening in Swansea for software engineers. At the moment, we're looking at people in the area, but we also very mindful that finding some skills in the area can maybe be a bit hard. So we're open to branching out to other parts where like Bristol, I believe, and parts of Wales. And as a business, we can be quite accommodating and supporting like travel, etc. We also have some roles in security. My colleague Bethan, who is also part of talent acquisition, is looking for a few security roles. I can actually see a list on my side where we're at with these roles, and maybe include a link in the chat. I can, yeah, I believe I can include a link in the chat as well. So just for the purpose of time, is that all right if I do that?
Yeah, 100%. Well, feel free to do that, and then we'll also follow up with any links. But yeah, if you can paste them in the chat, that'll be amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm just thinking the time is really conscious. I'll just paste it in the chat, and it should be available now. Just bear with me. I think it's come through. So it should be there to see.
Perfect. Yeah. Amazing. Super, super exciting things coming. I'm really excited. We've got a few questions here, either for you, Tess, or Sarah, whoever wants to pick this one up, around mentorship. How do you go about asking someone to be a mentor, and is that valuable, something people should consider?
I'm happy to have a stab at that one.
Go for it.
I find mentoring very much a two-way process. So it's not just about finding a mentor for me, it's also providing mentorship to other people. That sounds really formal, but actually it can be just a small thing, it can be short term. So I've got together with people after a meetup that was a kind of tech workshop, just to do some more practice on that thing. So that was really short term. Longer term, I've supplied time, space, answering some questions to folks at MadeTech, folks in previous jobs. One of my current mentors I found on LinkedIn. We started up a conversation after he posted a blog that I was interested in. So there's lots of different routes for that. Specific topics that you want to talk about, ladies who UX, for instance, if you're really interested in that design thing, finding a group that resonates with you is great. Somewhere that you feel comfortable and included is the most important thing for me.
Amazing, thank you. And on that topic, but this one is for you, Bill, do you anticipate any upcoming roles in UI, UX, and what level and locations? If you don't know yet, we can come back to them afterwards, but if you do.
Possibly in the future. The good thing about MadeTech is we could be saying, you know, this is happening somewhere down the line, but because of how agile and how our delivery works, it can change so quickly next week, and we can have some new roles. I don't think we've got anything live in UX and UI at the moment, but if anyone, I'll include my LinkedIn profile in the chat, and if anyone wants to, connect with me and just always keep in touch, I can definitely support and keep you all posted on what's happening.
Amazing. On that note as well, Bill, should they apply to the senior jobs directly or send an email to the company expressing interest?
It's a good question. Do you know what? I think both could be a really good sort of practice here, because I think it goes for any company. You apply for a job online, and the market, it's going to consistently be so competitive, especially in tech. Tech is such a volatile space. It can go 1,000 miles per hour and it can go back to 10 miles per hour. There's never anything in between. So I advise this to all candidates. When you apply for a job, send an email as well, just to say, I've applied for this job. This is my skill set, this is my passions, and it's easier for us to kind of like link that email back to the job. The good thing about how application tracking systems work is once you apply for a job and you email us, so in our G Suite, for example, that email will automatically integrate to your profile. So it means we don't have to search for your email. We could just search your name on IETS and we can find the email and we can communicate with you that way, and it just keeps a backlog and document the conversation, which makes it a lot easier for everyone. So to answer the question, apply for the job, send an email, and we're here to help.
Perfect, amazing. I'm just conscious of time because it's 1 o'clock and I know we have a lot of questions. We will follow up after this webinar with the responses to all of your questions, and as well as the links as well that have been shared today. But yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to all the speakers, Tess, Sarah, Sonia, she was with us on demand, and Bill as well for your time and for your amazing presentations. Like Bill said, Maytech is hiring. We'll send a follow-up email with all the links and everything you need to know on how to join them. And yeah, thank you to all the speakers for today's session. Have a great day. Thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.